all-new Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Xander has been acting totally weird.
You like your men dangerous, like Angel.
When you are the Slayer, there's evil wherever you turn. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, tonight.
Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Slade, the Buffyverse Revisited. I'm one of your hosts, I'm Jeremy.
I'm your other host, James.
And this week we will be diving into episode number 6 of season 1, which puts us halfway through season 1.
Yes,
as there's only 12 episodes in this first season.
Yes, truncated first season. I believe when I was started researching the first season, I believe every season after this has a full 24 episode run.
22, I believe.
Is it 22? Okay.
I believe it's 22. Yeah, this is a pretty common thing, even still, with you know, when a network orders a new show, they usually order about half of what their normal.
Right. Well, and I think we mentioned it in a previous episode. Buffy was originally supposed to air as a mid-season replacement.
Right.
So it would have had a truncated first season regardless as a mid-season replacement.
Indeed.
Yes.
I would just like to start really quick here, James, address the elephant in the room. I'm obviously not on video this week.
What?
Right? Couldn't even tell, could you?
That static image is so lifelike.
Right? Yeah, so let's just say I had a feline incident who decided to chew through a cable of my webcam, so I have a new one coming. It will be here tomorrow, but obviously that's not in time to record today. So I'll be back on video next week.
Cats are dicks.
They are, man. I love them to death, but they are real dicks.
Yeah.
And also, if my voice sounds a little funny, I'm getting over a bit of a cold, so just kind of bear with me there. It was not the Rona, I promise.
It was not the Rona.
Not the Rona.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling better, and hope you get to 100% soon.
100.
100. Something I would like to take a brief moment to mention, and it would have been more apropos of us to have mentioned it in episode 4, which at this time would have aired the Monday before the event I'm about to talk about, or even if we had mentioned it in episode 5, which will drop tomorrow, a couple days after the event I'm about to talk about, but we both forgot about it or didn't think to mention it. But this past week on March 10th, Buffy the Vampire celebrated its 25th anniversary of the first episode premiere.
That is correct. March 10th. Yep. Isn't that funny? We kind of started our podcast not too long before, 25 years to the day, and It was just by accident.
If we had been better tacticians, we would have planned that better.
Yeah, I never even really considered it until we'd already started, and I was like, "Wait a minute, March 10th was the first day. Holy shit!"
Yeah, we were. We were close. We were so close.
So close yet so far away.
Well, I think that's it. There were no emails.
Again, no emails.
No emails.
We have no fans, but
we have no nothing, no posts on the old social medias. But they're there. Like we say every week, reach out to us. Let us know how we're doing. Share your feelings with us, please.
Reach out and touch someone.
In a consensual way.
Right, in a consensual, non-creep way.
Right. Don't be Xander.
Yeah. Oh my God. Wait till we get to that part.
All right. Do you have anything else, Jeremy? Otherwise, I will head right into our dates and deets.
You head right in to those dates and deets.
All right. Our episode title this week is The Pack. It originally aired April 7th, 1997 on the WB network. Directed by Bruce Seth Green, a returning director for the first time in our initial run of Buffy episodes here. He previously directed Teacher's Pet, and he's got 11 episodes credited to him in the Buffyverse between Buffy and Angel. 8 for Buffy, 3 for Angel, those including From Buffy, Teacher's Pet, this episode, Nightmares, Some Assembly Required, Halloween, The Dark Age, Ted, and Phases. On Angel, he directed In the Dark, The Prodigal, and The Trial. His non-Buffyverse credits include episodes of Magnum P.I., Knight Rider, V, MacGyver, and Diagnosis Murder. And he has no movie credits to his name.
0.
Our credited writers this episode are another writing duo, it appears, based on their IMDb listings. They have 2 episodes credited to them in the Buffyverse, both only for Buffy. They wrote this episode as well as Inca Mummy Girl. Their non-Buffyverse credits include episodes of LA Law, Law and Order, and Andromeda. And their movie credits are 0. As always, our starring cast this week is Sarah Michelle Gellar as Buffy, Nicholas Brendan as Xander, Allison Hannigan as Willow, Charisma Carpenter as Cordelia, and Anthony Stewart Head as Giles. Our guest starring cast this week includes Ken Lerner as Principal Flutie, Ian Bailey as Kyle, Jeff Menard as Lance, and James Stevens as the Zookeeper.
Zookeeper.
Zookeeper. Our
Dr. Zookeeper.
Dr. Zookeeper. Dr. Zookeeper. Yeah. He is actually credited in the script with a name, but we'll get into that later. Our episode synopsis for this week, I've actually found better ones after doing the initial write-up of research for this one, but I'll give you the first one I found and used.
Right.
It is up to Buffy, Giles, and Willow to figure out what is wrong with Xander when he exhibits strange behavior at the zoo.
Okay, that's pretty good.
It is. I mean, it's a decent idea of what's going on in the episode without giving too much away.
Yeah, short and to the point.
Yep.
The IMDb one, as I always share, is very short and to the point this week once again. However, it's kind of spoilery. And it goes as so. Xander and several other students are possessed by the spirit of a demonic breed of hyenas that wreak havoc at the high school.
Okay.
Yeah, so short and to the point, but a little spoilery.
Yeah. Do you want to start us off, or would you like me to?
You go right ahead, sir.
All right. We open up at a sign. The sign is for the Sunnydale Zoo. We're pointed to the reptiles, the elephants, and the hyena house. We pan down from the sign to Buffy, who's walking alone, reading a zoo map, and she's quickly confronted by a group of other students, 2 young men and 2 young ladies, and they taunt her a little bit. They pick on her. They ask her what it's like to not want anyone to hang out with her, and if they ask her if she was as popular as she is now at her old school before she got kicked out, and they're taunting her a little bit, and they end up walking past her, and she moves on looking. She's clearly bummed by the encounter. It kind of took the wind out of her sails a little bit. She wanders over to the elephants, and she's reading the little plaque that's there, and it's not too long before Xander and Willow run up excitedly expressing their enjoyment at the zoo and the fact that they just got to see the zebras mating. And it's clear Buffy's not really feeling it. And Xander points out to her that the point of the zoo isn't to see the animals, it's to not be in class. And she kind of chippers up, a little bit after that, and they keep on their merry way walking. And we then go to another student who is by the monkeys, and he's sketching the monkeys or maybe taking notes on the monkeys in a notebook.
Yeah, it was kind
And
of ill.
yeah, it was hard to tell. And he is approached by our 4 antagonists from earlier. And
As I call them throughout my notes, the asshole brigade.
okay. And one of the boys in the group addresses the young man with the notebook as Lance, and Lance in turn addresses him as Kyle. He appears to be the de facto leader of the asshole brigade.
And all I could think of when he addressed him as Kyle, the rest of the episode was, fuck you, Kyle. All I could think of.
My initial reaction to his name being Kyle was just, of course, his name is fucking Kyle.
Exactly. Yeah. It's either that or Chad.
Right. So they, of course, right away take to also picking on Lance, asking him if this is like a family reunion for him, and if his mom still picks the lice out of his hair, that sort of thing. At that point, Principal Flutie interrupts and asks what's going on. It's kind of evident from the interaction that this isn't anything new for this particular group of students. Flutie says as much. He's been has his eye on them for a while now. Lance doesn't give up that the group was picking on him. He says they were, just playing around. And Flutie accepts it and walks off. And so now Lance has kind of temporarily ingratiated himself with those 4. And they tell him that they're going to take him along with them to go look at the hyena exhibit, which is off limits. So they all head over to the hyena exhibit, and Lance and Kyle and the other 3 head in, and we see that Buffy and Willow and Xander are watching them go in. And Buffy says she better follow along, and Xander says he'll take care of it. It's not really a Slayer-related problem. So he heads in, and Buffy and Willow have a little bit of back and forth before they decide that they better go in after Xander, just in case. And as they're trying to get in, they're stopped by a zookeeper who tells them that the hyenas are in quarantine. They just came in from Africa. And that they can't go in there. And he says even if they hear the hyenas calling their names, and it gives them a little mythology about how it's said in myths that hyenas would follow people around during the day and learn their names and then call out to them at night. And once they've been separated from the rest of the people, they would attack and devour them.
Yummy.
Delicious. So then we're back at the exhibit, and the male half of our asshole brigade are
there's 2 boys and 2 girls.
Right.
And that they comprise the asshole brigade.
Right. Then we're at the exhibit, and they look in at the hyenas. They identify hyenas multiple, but we only see one hyena, and it is
Ever.
ever. This is the only time we see a hyena in the exhibit, or in the episode for that matter, which we'll talk about later. But it is quite possibly one of the worst hyena puppets I have ever seen.
Yeah. We discussed this prior to recording, and it looked like a sock puppet. It was really, really bad. Really bad. And I get it. It was the 90s. This is a low budget show, yada, yada. But
right.
Damn, I've seen better puppets in like high school plays.
Yeah. So they our two guys in the asshole brigade start to taunt Lance again, saying, oh, the hyena looks hungry, and they grab Lance, and they're threatening to throw him into the pit. And just then Xander comes in and grabs Lance and pushes him away from the group. And Kyle
that's when he's just like, pick on somebody else, I see.
Yeah, Xander.
I'm like, I forget the line he used, but it was
Xander
said that, and then this Kyle says, "What are you gonna get in my face?" And I was like, "Oh,
yeah, God. It was bad. Yeah, Xander says, "Why don't you pick on someone your own species?"
Oh, that was it. And then Lance is like, "What are you gonna get in my face?" And I was like,
"Yeah,
yeah,
it was not the best dialogue."
No.
So at that point, they hear the hyenas growling, and they all turn to look at the hyena, and the hyena's eyes flash a yellow-green color, and then one by one, Kyle and the rest of the asshole brigade's eyes flash the same color, and then Xander's flash the same color as well. And we see from a camera zoom out, around, and above that they're all standing in what appears to be some sort of tribal hyena symbol, except for Lance. And they all turn and start to laugh like hyenas at Lance before
badly like hyenas
at Lance before he skedaddles on out of there. And that's our prologue.
Yeah, that is our cold open, ladies and gentlemen.
Cold open, yes.
That was, I didn't check. I meant to check the time. I think that was like 8 minutes for the cold open.
Yeah, something like that. It was quite long.
Yeah, sometimes they have a really long one, and then some episodes it's like one little quick scene and pow,
Right. I inadvertently referred to it as the prologue, but it actually is, as you state, the cold open. Something I noticed, and I watched it on Hulu, but they didn't have the usual opening prologue that they've had for the past 5 episodes.
Yeah, this was the first episode, and it's very sporadic, like it comes and goes, it's the whole, you're talking about the whole
in every generation.
In every generation. Yeah. It comes and goes. It was never really explained why, but it just, some episodes it's in and some episodes it's not.
Yeah, and this so far in our first season, 6 episodes in, this is our first episode where it's not.
Yeah. So. Right at the halfway point, they're like, you know what? You don't get the prologue anymore.
They're like, if you're still right, they're like, if you're still watching, you know what's going on.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I figured. But it comes back and then it goes away again, and then it comes back again. Yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah.
So anyway, we come back from what would have been a commercial break, obviously, and we're at the Bronze, and Buff and Wilster are there. Yeah, I said Buff and Wilster. And Willow's like, she thought Xander would have been there by now. And, Buffy's like, oh, he's late. In other words, that's a standard Xander thing. And when Willow asked Buffy if she noticed anything strange about him on the bus ride home, that he was, really quiet, standoffish, just didn't seem like himself. And they're chatting back and forth, and Buffy totally sees how much Willow is into Xander. Like, I think this is the first time. I think she's always known it, but this is the first time she really sees, like, how much Willow is basically just head over heels for Xander.
Right. Well, and not only that, but I think it might be the first time so far that it's openly acknowledged between
I think it is
multiple characters.
Yeah, other than just like innuendos and kind of foreshadowing stuff. But I think this is the first time it's really put just on Front Street that Willow's just totally in love with Xander.
Yeah, I mean, as the viewing audience so far, like, we've picked up on the hints and everything, but yeah, this is the first time that it's actively discussed.
Yeah, and Buffy's like, she's bringing up all the things that Willow keeps track of, and she's like, you even know his blood pressure, and Willow's like, well, I forget what she said, 130/80.
Yeah.
So then Buffy starts talking about, well, she hasn't had that lately herself, that kind of those kind of feelings and being really into somebody, and she's talking about that, and Willow basically calls BS, and she's like, come on now, we all know Angel pushes your buttons, and Buffy's like, well, but he's hardly ever around, and when he is, he just talks about vamps and blah blah blah. And then Willow looks over and says, oh, there he is, and Buffy immediately turns to Angel. And no, it's Xander, and he comes sauntering into the bronze and kind of has this weird stare down with this girl that he's passing by, and she's looking at him like, just kind of oddly, like, what's with him? And and he's just doing this animal magnetism stare, and
see, and that's like, it's you said, like, she's staring at him like, man, what's with him? And I kind of got more of a like she was definitely vibing with whatever Xander was putting on.
That's what I meant, was like, she's looking like, what's like, what's different about him? Like, she knew him from school, but you know what I mean? But she's like, what's different about him? Because
gotcha.
He's definitely putting a different vibe out than our standard Xander Harris vibe.
Right.
And anyway, then he looks up and sees Will and Buffy and says, girls. And then he has a funny line. He kind of walks up and he goes, sorry I'm late. I just forgot we were going to be here. And I was like, well, at least he's honest. So, but yeah, then he starts. By the way, Buffy had gotten a buttery croissant from the bar area before she and Willow had sat down, and she hadn't touched it yet. Well, he immediately just grabs it and starts devouring it, and he's like, oh, I'm hungry. And then he just kind of tosses it back, the remainder. No, I think he ate it all.
No, he tore a chunk out.
Okay,
took a bite of that chunk and then discarded. Yeah,
then he tossed the rest down. He was like, this is crap. What is this crap? I need food, actual meat. And they're just like, the fuck? And they can just tell he's being weird. He's just not being himself. He's kind of not, I don't want to say jumpy, but he's just kind of he's really high strung and just kind of, like somebody with ADD that hasn't had their meds that day. And just kind of pinging around.
Yeah, he's definitely more antsy and
there you go, antsy. He's very ants in the pants.
Right. And he even says it too, like, restless. It's a restlessness.
And I noticed too, I don't know if you noticed, a couple of times he's like reaching up and like scratching himself, which I found.
Oh yeah, he's like almost through the entire scene. He's like scratching at his chest, or it's mostly his chest through the entire scene, but he does reach up and like the back of his head. Yeah,
exactly. And then all of a sudden he leans over to Buffy, just nonchalantly, and just like sniffs her, literally sniffs her, but he doesn't even really. It's like he doesn't even realize he even did it. It's just a a natural thing. And her and Will are both like, the fuck? And he's like, oh, you took a bath. And she's like, yeah, I'm pretty well known for doing that. And he's like, oh, it's good. It's okay. That's okay. And they're just like, what the fuck? Anyway,
I would like to say that under normal circumstances, like clearly as a viewer, we know that something's off with Xander. But if they hadn't revealed that, I don't know that I would have. What we've seen of Xander up to this point, I don't know that I would have been like, well, that's weird for him to do. I kind of
yeah,
feel like
not the sniffing part. No, yeah.
right. I kind of feel
Not
like
at all.
I would have been like, yeah, well, that's a creepy Xander thing.
Yeah, I mean, he was looking through a mirror in the last episode trying to see her change. So yeah,
Right.
that doesn't surprise me. And she says, and the weird behavior award goes to, and just at that time, the asshole brigade shows up, and as they're sauntering into the bronze, I'm gonna call it sauntering from now on. As they're sauntering in, Xander locks eyes with them, and they lock eyes with him, and they're just all having this weird stare down.
Mm-hmm.
And they walk right up to the table where they're at, and you're expecting some type of situation here, but they just walk by, and they go over to a table where a couple of kids are sitting. One's, kind of a portly fellow. They're clearly meant to be quote unquote nerdy. So the asshole brigade walks up to him and starts messing with them. What are you doing? Sitting in my seat and blah 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 blah. Sitting at our table. I'm sorry. And they go back and forth, and then one of the girls from the asshole brigade says, "Shouldn't you be at the floating around the football stadium with Goodyear written on you?" And of course, they all bust out in this horrific, horrible hyena laughter, and Xander does too from afar, from where he and Buffy and Willow are. And they, Buffy and Willow look at him like, "What the hell, dude?" And he's like, "What? It's funny. The kid's fat." And they're just like, "What?" And yeah, so that's that scene.
Yeah. I would like to point out, I don't know if you noticed it, and I don't know if she bought them there at the Bronze or if she just brought them herself. Willow's eating raisins.
Is she really?
Yeah,
I missed that.
she's got a box of sun-made raisins that she's opening up and eating out of as her and Buffy walk from the bar to their table and are talking about Xander and Angel.
I totally missed that.
Yeah.
Well, they seem to sell some odd things. We know they sell cornbread muffins,
Yes.
Buttery croissants, and now raisins.
And
we
possibly
need to make a
raisins.
menu of everything that we see them buy to eat at the Bronze.
Right. The Bronze may just have like a high school cafeteria menu.
Yeah, that or like a shitty Panera bread.
Where you can get apple slices instead of a potato.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Instead of French fries, here's some apples.
Right. You didn't want fries? Here's your box of sun-made raisins.
Yeah, here's some raisins for you, 6-year-old.
So that takes us to the library at good old Sunnydale High. And Buffy's doing some training with Giles, some roundhouses and whatnot.
See it working those pads.
Working those pads, yes.
And he does not look.
And yeah,
he looks ragged.
Giles looks like it's taking a toll on him, and she gets ready to do another roundhouse, and Giles is like, no, nope, that's fine, we're good, it's fine.
Good day, good practice.
Right. And Buffy's like, I don't know, that last roundhouse felt sloppy. Should we maybe go again? And he's like, no, you run off to class while I, wait for the feeling to return to my arms.
Yeah.
At which point we are then taken to a ground level POV on the floor, zigzagging around corners and out into the school hall, and
Students screaming.
students screaming, and
So we know it's a werewolf at this point.
right. It's clearly a werewolf. And our POV ends as we run up onto and into Buffy's arms. And we see that Buffy is now holding a small little pig dressed in just the most hideous homemade razorback pig outfit. He's got a little football helmet on and tusks and
Like a foam
razorback
piece, yeah.
And Principal Flutie shows up and introduces him to everyone as Herbert, who's the new school mascot for the Sunnydale Razorbacks. And he goes to reach for Herbert to take him, but Herbert doesn't want to go with him. So Flutie insists that Buffy come along with him to put Herbert back in the cage. And so they go, and Flutie's talking to Buffy about how students nowadays lack school spirit, and back in his day, that's all the students cared about was school spirit and the football team's record. And then he says, but when I was your age, I also had old guys all around me telling me how much better things were when I was their age. So, and you know what? I think I might have missed something, didn't I?
In that scene, no, you got it.
No, that's it. Okay.
Because then we jump.
Right.
Yeah, then we jump to that's actually the end of that scene, and because it's a short scene.
Yeah, it is a very short scene. Yep.
Because then we jump to Willow and Xander outside in like the courtyard area, and they're sitting under a tree, and she's trying to help him with his math. And I could totally relate to this scene because I was always horrible in math. I hated math. I was not good at math. Anyway, I could relate to this scene. And she's trying to explain different, math terms and whatnot to him, and he's just totally frustrated and pissed off. It's he's being really short-tempered with her and snapping at her. He's just being very un-Xander-like.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, he's just like, I don't even care. And he grabs the book, tosses it in the trash can, gets up, tosses the notebook on her lap, and he's just like, I don't care anymore. And he just storms away. That's the scene.
Yeah. And we see then that where he was storming was back into the school, where Buffy is still outside of the room where they're keeping Herbert. And as Xander walks past Buffy and Herbert, he doesn't say anything to Buffy, doesn't acknowledge her at all, which is odd. And on top of that, Herbert is clearly freaked out by Xander's presence.
Yeah, he starts going spastic.
Yes.
And I'm just going to say, you notice that as Xander gets further away, the pig calms down.
Yes.
And Buffy just kind of watches the whole thing like, what the fuck?
Yeah, she definitely takes note of
by
this
the way,
reaction.
Am I the only one that had difficulty with them naming the pig Herbert because I can't get past Herbert the pervert from Family Guy?
No, I mean, maybe.
I was just waiting for the pig to be like, hey there, sexy.
Between the two of us, yeah, I think you're the only one that couldn't get past it.
Okay, well, thanks.
I honestly didn't even think about it till you.
As soon as he said Herbert, because I've always thought that was one of the most hilarious characters that I've ever seen. and how they get away with it, I don't know. But anyway, that's what I thought as soon as he said, "This is Herbert, our new." I was like, "Oh no." Hey there, Herbert. How you doing, sexy? But anyway, so then we go on to the next scene. We're in gym class,
Which
and go ahead.
I do want to say is preceded by quite possibly the worst insert shot of lightning and a rainy day that I've ever seen.
Oh yes, yeah, it was pretty poor. Yeah, pretty poor. And anyway, the gym teacher / coach is holding something we're all familiar with is the red dodgeball. And, he's like, it's raining outside. All gym classes are canceled. So you know what that means? Dodgeball. So long story short, they all start playing dodgeball. And wouldn't you know, the asshole brigade and Xander are on one side and Willow and Buffy are on the other team. And they begin slanging balls back and forth. That did not come out right, but you know what I meant. And, little by little, they're chipping away at each team. And then at one point, Xander gets the ball and just drills Willow, just wings her. And she just looks at him like, what the hell, man? And, she goes to the sideline and sits down and kind of pouts
off. I have to say, like, I even, like, I kind of, when he, like, deliberately pegged her in the head like that, I let out a little bit of a gasp.
Yeah, like, was that intentional or?
Right. I was like, what?
Yeah, he just drilled her.
Yeah.
But,
which, I mean, honestly, like, that, I'm sure that's the reaction the writers and director were going for.
Yeah, they might have told him, "Hey, listen, when you throw it at her, wing her in the head."
Right. Like, I mean, it was
get a natural reaction.
Right. Like, it was a deliberate headshot on Xander's part.
Yeah.
And I'm sure my reaction was exactly what everyone behind the scenes involved was going for.
Yeah, because as soon as I saw it, I was like, "Damn!"
Yeah.
Because it's been many years since I've seen these episodes, so I forget little things like this, and I saw it and I was like, "Damn!"
Yeah.
But so anyway, she goes to the sideline and pouts, and it comes down to it's just Buffy left on her side, and the whole asshole brigade and Xander are on the other side, and big stare down between the two groups. Well, the group and the Buffy, and Xander smiles like, "Oh, we got you now." And then all of a sudden, the whole asshole brigade and Xander turn to face, who is it? Lance, who's on their team. And he sees them looking at him, and he's looking at them, and they all just drill him, just one after another with their ball. And it's just like, Buffy's like, "What the fuck?" And so she runs over to help Lance up, and the asshole brigade and Xander just walk away. And the coach said, what did he say? Something like, he goes, "God, this game is brutal. I love it."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yep, that's pretty classic gym teacher guy there." But
yeah,
I it was just weird. It just seemed like a weird ending. Like,
well,
it seemed like if Lance had been on Buffy's side and it had come down to just Buffy and Lance over there, and then they just ignored her and just drilled him and then walked away, that would have made more sense to me.
Yeah. So, I think they did it the way they did because, so, hyenas in nature.
Yeah, prey on the weak.
Right. They'll avoid stronger, more powerful animals.
Right.
And attack the weak. So
right. I'm saying they should have put Lance over on the other side, and then they could have took out Lance as the weak prey, and then just turned and walked away. I was like, why did they have him on their team? Because that's just stupid. Because in my, I don't know what the hell kind of gym classes these people have ever been in, but any gym class I was ever in, if they had done that, the gym teacher would have been like, "Yo, the fuck." People would have been running some laps. Let's put it that way.
Right.
So I don't know. I just found that.
I mean, unless
stupid.
Unless they were going for the added
they'll turn on one of their own.
Right, exactly. Like
But I'm like, well, that doesn't really make sense either, though, because he's not part of the pack. So I was just like, I don't know. It just seems silly.
And that's what I was gonna say. Like it makes sense if you look at it from the perspective of they'll turn on the weakest member of their own pack before they would confront a stronger enemy. But I don't necessarily know that Lance is actually a part of the pack.
Yeah, he's not. And see, that's
right. I mean, he's not possessed, like, but
and that's something I want to talk about at the end too, of something that I thought would have made a better episode, all around. But anyway, we'll talk about that at the end.
So we're at some point after gym class now, and Willow's hanging around by lockers outside of a classroom, and Xander and the rest of the asshole brigade come out of a classroom, and they're chittering and giggling and laughing amongst each other. And Willow confronts Xander, about his behavior as of late. And Xander says it's he thinks it's because his feelings for Willow have changed, and she looks hesitant, but also a little excited, like, "Ooh, where is this going?" And he proceeds to tell her that he's going to drop geometry.
Which I have to bust in here.
Sure.
Since when in high school can you just drop a class? And besides that, like, and when I was in high school, math was a 4-year requirement.
Right.
So, but anyway, that's nitpicking, I know, but that just bugged me.
So yeah, he tells her that he's going to be dropping geometry, which means he won't need her to tutor him anymore, which also means that he'll never have to look at her. And I don't have it written down
Her
here,
pasty face anymore.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think he says something along the lines of her pasty white face. But
yeah. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah,
that escalated quickly.
Me too. And of course, Xander laughs, and the asshole brigade behind him laughs, and Willow obviously is devastated. And
because not only, we should reiterate that not only do we, for sure find out in this episode that she's head over heels for Xander, but they've been best friends since they're toddlers.
Right.
So, this is a pretty out of left field, like,
turn of events. Right. And I again kind of like the dodgeball scene, like when he landed that jab at her, I was like, are you fucking kidding me right now?
Right. Yeah.
So Willow runs off, again, obviously devastated by what Xander just said. In the meantime, Buffy has come to her locker and heard the entire exchange. And she slams her locker shut and approaches Xander with arms crossed and says, "Are you going to say something to me?" And he just busts out laughing again, even louder, as do the asshole brigade, and he turns and leaves with them.
Yeah. The stupid hyena laughter just is driving me crazy as it's getting more and more potent.
Yeah.
The episode goes along. It's just it's so bad. Anyway, so we catch up with the asshole brigade, and they're outside now. Is that the quad, or is that like the courtyard? I'm not sure.
I just refer to it all as the quad at this point.
Okay. So they're out in the quad, and they're, sauntering around as hyenas do. And then Xander stops and, sniffs the air and kind of looks around and says, "Dogs." And I think it's Kyle says, "Where?" And they all kind of take off in a direction, and they come up to a couple of guys that are sitting at a picnic table eating their lunch. And they obviously know Xander because they asked Xander about, I think it's a drummer for a certain band, and what does he think of him, or a lead guitar player or something.
A guitarist, yeah.
Yeah, and
Wretched refuse.
yeah, wretched refuse, yeah. And Xander just grabs the hot dog out of the bun, and they all start sniffing it, all the asshole brigade, and then Xander takes a bite of it?
No, it's it's the other guy in the asshole brigade, not
The
Kyle.
blonde-haired guy. Okay. Yeah, he takes a bite of it, and they're like, "Well," and he's like, "Oh," and he throws it down. He's like, it's cooked, like it's overcooked. As you know, they're hyenas. They want raw meat. So anyway, and the dudes that are sitting there are like, "What the fuck?" And then Xander sniffs again, and they all leave. Like they're following a trail of smell, and they end up back inside in the room where Herbert the pig is in his cage.
Dun, dun, dun.
A couple of the assholes start closing mini blinds, and Xander goes up and he's looking in the cage at the pig, and the pig starts squealing, and Xander says, "Let's do lunch." And then some more of that stupid hyena laughing, and fade to black.
Yes. So when we come back from commercial break, we see Xander and the rest of the asshole brigade slow motion sauntering through the quad outside the school. They're looking around at everyone, and
This
everyone's
bugged me so much because it went on so long.
it did it's
All this slow-mo sauntering with this goofy 90s alternative music, playing over it. And I was like, barf, all right, enough.
well, I'll tell you the name of the band and song later.
I can't wait.
Because I know you're a huge fan of all the music they use.
Yeah, well, and
on the show
I don't know,
so
these
far.
first couple of seasons, it's cringy.
But yeah, they're walking around and they're doing their slow-mo saunter, and eyeballing everyone, and everyone's eyeballing them, and finally Xander spots Buffy and Willow up on the balcony, and through, I'm guessing, the power of super hyena hearing, he eavesdrops on their conversation.
Yeah.
And Willow's crying, and of course, and as she should be, and
doing a very good job of it.
yeah, and she's telling Buffy that she's known Xander her entire life, and they haven't always been close, but it's never been anything like this. And she's like, maybe 3 isn't company anymore. And Buffy's like, you think this has something to do with me? And Willow's like, of course. Like, he's not picking on you. He's just sniffing you a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
In other words, he's clearly and I think this is the first time it's stated to Buffy in no uncertain terms that Xander,
fancies her.
has the hots for her.
Right. And so Buffy basically tells her, well, that still doesn't explain why he's hanging out with the asshole brigade, and there's something wrong with him. And Willows asks what she's gonna do, and Buffy says she's gonna consult the expert on weird.
Yeah. And that takes us to the library, because we all know the expert on weird is Giles.
Is Mr. Giles.
So Mr. Giles is walking around listening to her, tell this tale of how he's been acting and yada yada. Long story short, Giles is like, he's a 16. He's turned into a 16-year-old boy. In other words, he's just not buying any of it. It all just sounds like, to him, it just sounds like, adolescent, post-pubescent, angst and whatnot. And he mentions that testosterone is the great equalizer. It turns all men into idiots, and that he will eventually get over it. And Buffy's just like, no, this, you're wrong. This is supernatural. This is definitely something supernatural. And she hands him a bunch of books, and she's like, here, look in your books and find it. And he's like, what would I even look under? Well, the vague description you've given me doesn't even give me anything to go on. And, Giles says he's just being, a cruel boy, preying on the weak. And when he says that, Buffy's like, wait, what did you just say? The whole preying on the weak thing. And she's like, wait a minute. Xander followed those assholes, the asshole brigade, into the hyena cage at the zoo, and he's been acting wiggy ever since. And, so she's kind of starting to piece this thing together, that something's supernatural has gone on in there. And Giles is clearly kind of amused and still unconvinced. And then right about that time, Willow comes bursting into the library and says, they found Herbert. And Buffy's like, yeah. And Willow says, dead and eaten. And that seems to get Giles to be like, oh, okay, wait, maybe, yeah, okay, maybe this is a thing.
Right.
And
As Buffy turns to him and she's like, testosterone, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, he starts to walk away, and they're like, what are you gonna do? And he's like, get my books, look stuff up.
And so then we cut to back in the quad, and Principal Flutie is on a mission, clearly. And it doesn't take him long to find who he's looking for, mainly our asshole brigade. And he tells them that some other students saw them outside Herbert's room, and they're busted, and he orders them to his office, which they kind of nonchalantly wave off at first, and then he orders in a more authoritative tone, and they head off to the office. And as they're walking to his office, he tells them, you're going to have so much detention, your grandchildren will be staying after school.
Yeah. And I was like, sounds like me in high school. So then we cut back to the library, and Willow and Buffy are researching. And Buffy says, huh. She goes, listen to this. Apparently Noah rejected hyenas from the ark because he thought they were evil. I'm sorry, he thought they were an evil, impure mixture of dogs and cats. And then Giles comes out to say, we have a clip, so I'll let Mr. Giles explain a little more in depth here what he says when he comes out.
Why couldn't Xander be possessed by a puppy or some ducks?
That's assuming possession is the right word.
Oh, I'll say it is. The Masai of the Serengeti have spoken of animal possession for generations. I should have remembered that.
So how does it work?
Well, apparently there's a sect of animal worshippers known as primals. They believe that humanity, consciousness, the soul, is a perversion, a dilution of spirit. To them, the animal state is holy. They're able, through transpossession, to draw the spirit of certain animals into themselves.
And then they started acting like hyenas.
Well, only the most predatory of animals are of interest to primals, so yes, that would fit, yes.
So we learn about this sect that call themselves primals, and as you heard him say, they like to transpossess, bring animal spirits into themselves, blah blah blah. So it's all coming together now. We're getting a clear picture as to what has happened. The only question really remaining is, how did it happen and why did it happen? So anyway, Buffy says, well, okay, so what happens to someone, who's had this happen to them? And Giles says, well, if it goes unchecked, and then he shows her a book, and she looks at it, closes it, puts it down, and she's like, I gotta find Xander, and she bails. And then Willow grabs the book and opens it back up and looks, and it's a picture of people who have been eaten and just ravaged. So in other words, they will become homicidal maniacs.
Yes. And the first place Buffy goes to try and find Xander is the faculty room where Herbert was being kept and was subsequently found eaten. Xander sneaks up behind Buffy and startles her. And she tries to get away, and he jumps in front of her, and she's like, this is ridiculous. We have to talk about your behavior. And she starts to turn around and then immediately turns back around and jumps Xander, pushing him onto the ground. And he makes a sleazy remark about how he's been waiting for her to jump his bones.
Yeah.
And he ends up rolling her over, so he's on top of her, and she's struggling and telling him to get off, and he's basically just remarking about how is that sure that's what she really wants, and he knows she likes dangerous men like Angel, and well, guess who just became dangerous, meaning himself. And she's trying to explain what's happened, and he's not listening. And meanwhile, we're intercut with scenes from Principal Flutie's office, where he's basically laying down the riot act to the asshole brigade. And the more agitated he's getting, the more agitated they're getting. There's like the angrier he gets, the more excited they get. Sort of a dichotomy that's playing out in the simultaneous scene with Buffy and Xander. And we're cut back to Buffy and Xander, and she manages to push him off, but he pushes her up against a vending machine and tells her, the more scared she is of him, the better she smells. And we're back in Principal Flutie's office, where, like I said, we're seeing the same thing juxtaposed with Flutie and the asshole brigade, until finally they attack him and are eating him alive.
Yeah, they all just pounce on him, and then you hear like crunching, and it's like, okay,
right.
I guess Bob Flutie is no more.
And in the meantime, back with Buffy and Xander, Buffy manages to knock Xander out with a desk. And that's that scene.
Yeah, then we cut back to Willow, who's still in the library, and now she's watching a video of hyenas in the wild eating like a carcass, and she's just kind of grossed out by it. And Buffy comes in, dragging an unconscious Xander behind her, and she's like, "We got to get him locked up before he comes to." And Willow's like, "Oh my God, what happened?" And Buffy's like, "I hit him." She's like, "With what?" And Buffy says, "A desk." uh, he tried his hand at felony sexual assault. So yeah, she put him down. So anyway, they put him into this. We will see this many times throughout the series. There is a little area in the library that is caged off with a pretty heavy, steel cage door that locks. So they put him in there, lock it up, safe and sound.
It's a book lockup. I don't why exactly they have a book lockup. I'm unsure of.
Yeah, I've seen one in a high school library.
Right. I would imagine that's, and I don't know if we actually ever see it later in the series, but I would imagine that that's probably where Giles keeps all of the maybe not all of them, but a majority of the books about, vampires and the occult and all that kind of stuff. All the stuff they usually end up researching.
Yeah, that probably makes sense, as to why that's there.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, they get him put in there, get him locked up, and Buffy's like, "I got to find the rest of the pack." And just at that time, Giles comes in and basically says, I know where the rest of the pack are because they ate the fucking principal. So they're like, "What?" And they're like, Principal Flutie. Yeah, Principal Flutie has been eaten alive. He was found. The official theory is wild dogs somehow got into his office. And just then Willow realizes that Xander wasn't a part of it because he was with Buffy at that time fighting Buffy. And then, now he's here locked up. So, that's a small mercy. So they're just like, "Giles, how do we stop this?" And he's not really sure. He's like, the exact ritual. And then he kind of trails off and he realizes that a book he has, so he grabs and he starts thumbing through it and he realizes, deals with demonic possession, which may apply here. And he's like, yes, here we go. One should be able to transfer the spirits to another human. And Buffy's like, yeah, any volunteers? And he's like, well, good point. Buffy's like, we got to put the hyenas spirits back into the hyenas. And then she realizes, hey, I'll bet that zookeeper can help, because I bet he didn't quarantine those just because they were sick. He must have known something was up. And so Giles is like, well, let's go. And, Buffy's like, well, somebody needs to stay and watch Xander. And Willow volunteers. And after some convincing, they're like, okay. And so off Giles and Buffy go to see the zookeeper.
Yes. And that takes us to it's a very brief
weird scene that could have not in the show at all because it meant nothing.
Yeah, it's at night and it's clearly in a park somewhere in Sunnydale, and the asshole brigade are all asleep, after feasting on Principal Bob.
Yeah, they're all around on the ground like actual hyenas, like laying on top of each other and sleeping.
Right, and a young lady with a baby comes walking through on a path and
in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night.
So this the whole thing is just so dumb.
And the asshole brigade wakes up and start drooling and growling at her, and she ends up running off. And
luckily they had recently fed, I guess.
Right, and they go back to sleep, I guess. But yeah,
the scene is just stupid. I mean, I think if I had to guess, it's probably a time filler. They probably ran short.
Probably.
And they tossed that in there because they almost always film little interstitial scenes here and there to use for filler if need be. So I'm sure this was one of those, but oh God, was it stupid? It served no purpose. I mean,
Right.
had they started chasing her and that had become some bigger angle, okay, but she just runs away and they're all like, okay, bye, and they go back to sleep.
Right. Right.
I don't know, just silly.
And that will take us back to the library where Xander is woken up in the book cage, and he basically tries to talk his way out. You know, he's kind of he's definitely preying on Willow's feelings for him. Talking about how their lives were, better before Buffy came along, and when it was just her and him, and
He just wants her help only.
right. He just wants her and needs her, and she she's saying, I'm I am helping you, and he tells her, you're just doing what you're told, and a lot of back and forth like that, and Willow ends up getting close enough to the book cage that Xander makes a grab at her through the book slot, and she recoils back away, and she's basically like, well, now I know which you was talking to me, whether or not it was the real Xander or this, possessed version of Xander.
Yeah. So then we go to, I'm assuming it's the zoo. Buffy and Giles have met up with the zookeeper, and I'm thinking, why would he be at work still at the middle of the night? But anyway, we'll just go with it. And they're talking to him, and he's like being really understanding and helpful, and really like just really pliable, and he and Giles are kind of becoming, bros over, discussing this occult stuff and everything. And he's like, wow, where'd you read that? And eventually Buffy has to be like, guys, let's fucking focus here. Enough with the bromance. And so the zookeeper's like, okay, so bring the students, to the hyena house. I'll meet you there, and maybe together, we can pull off a reverse transpossession spell. And Buffy's like, well, we have one, but we have no idea where the other four are. And the zookeeper says, well, that's not a problem. After they feed and they rest, they will track the missing member of the pack until they find him. So they should come right to you. And at that time, Giles and Buffy are like, Willow, oh fuck. So they bail to get back to the library to help Willow.
They do.
Who is clearly going to be eaten by hyenas.
Right. And they're not quite fast enough, as the rest of but the asshole brigade has in fact tracked Xander down to the library, and they're taunting Willow by calling her name from outside the library windows. And at first she thinks it's Xander and tells him to shut up. And then she realizes that they're outside the windows, which they immediately crash through. And she runs out of the library into the halls of Sunnydale High as Xander and the rest of the pack tear the doors off of the book cage and follow after Willow. And she ends up in a classroom, hiding under a desk. Hiding under a desk. And the pack kind of split up three go off in different directions, and Xander and one of the young ladies follow Willow's scent to the classroom she's hiding in. And they go in and they look around and they don't spot her. And so they leave. And Willow hears the door close behind them and comes up from her hiding spot in the desk. And surprise, Xander didn't leave.
Yeah,
And
nobody saw that coming.
And he promptly proceeds to attack by trying to jump over the desk. He doesn't catch her. She ends up running past the desk and past him, and overturning another student desk, which he trips over, and she flings the door open and is confronted by one of the female members of the pack that had been with Xander. But she's quickly taken out by Buffy with a fire extinguisher.
Is that what that was? Because I was like, what the hell is that? Is that like a water can or what? Because it was just this gray.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't get it. It wasn't clearly obvious to me, but
yeah, it looks like
her in the face with it. So yeah, she's done.
Yeah, it just looks like a big fire extinguisher to me.
And then I have to say, after she smokes her in the face, she turns around and just fucking karate kicks the piss out of Xander right in the face.
Yeah.
Just kicks the crap out of him.
Yeah.
I loved it. Do you remember, did she karate kick the fuck out of Xander out of the room? No.
She must have.
I know where you're going with this.
She must have, because then she being Buffy locks herself, Giles, who has shown up, and Willow in that room.
Yeah, because the rest of the pack come running. So
right. So she had to
out of the room. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't remember. Yeah, she must have. Yeah,
it was a very odd turn of events here. So because she hits homegirl from behind with the fire hydrant, and the way it's shot makes it look like she just turns, or she's already facing Xander, and then she just drop kicks him in the mush right there. But that would have sent him flying back into the bad editing, I would assume.
They're locked in there, and Buffy apologizes to Willow, like, I didn't know they'd come for Xander, and Willow says it's fine. And then Buffy tells them that to go to the zoo, and she'll lead the pack there, and then leaves.
Right, like, you guys go there, and I'll bring them to you. In other words, I'll get them to follow me.
Right.
So then we cut to this goofy family. This scene just bothered me so much, but I'm just gonna breeze through it quickly. This goofy family is coming out of their house, and the mom and the dad are having this utterly pointless, stupid argument about something that no one on the planet cares about. And the little boy's eating an ice cream cone, and they get into their little minivan or whatever it is, and he's like, "Where are the keys?" So immediately I'm like, "What do you mean, where the hell are the keys? Shouldn't you have the fucking keys in your hand or in your pocket?" I mean, I don't know, just stupid. And about that time, hyena pack attack, and they're all over the van, and they're looking in the windows and making scary noises, and they break the glass, and blah blah blah. Buffy shows up and starts kicking some ass, kicking them off, throwing them off, punching them off the van and stuff. And she gets Xander's attention and says, "Didn't your mother ever teach you not to play with your food?" And she's like, come on, you know what you want. And so she takes off, and the pack takes off after her. And about that time, Giles and Willow show up at the zoo, but no
Can I,
Zuki. Oh,
well,
go ahead.
I was like the I don't necessarily think the scene with the family was pointless, but it completely contradicts the idea that hyenas will not attack stronger prey and instead go for weaker prey. There's no logical reason from a hyena perspective that they would then decide to go after Buffy.
Right. Other than
she taunted them.
Yeah, the only thing I can figure is that they don't know. The rest of the pack doesn't know what she is.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Right.
maybe they don't really think of her as, something they can't take down as a pack.
And since Xander went after her, because I don't think we've mentioned it yet, but at some point
Xander seems to be like the leader of the pack.
Yeah, at some point, somehow Xander became the de facto alpha of this pack.
Right. Yeah.
Which makes absolutely no sense to me, because prior to being possessed, clearly Kyle in any situation would have been the quote unquote alpha.
Fuck you, Cal. Yeah, he was definitely exactly. So it's, it is what it is. But
Right.
So they take off chasing her, and so yeah, we like I said, we flash over to Giles and Willow, who show up at the zoo outside the hyena house, but no zookeeper. And Giles is like, okay, you wait out here. When you hear them coming, you come in there and let me know. I'm going to go ahead and go in right now and get prepared and get ready. He's like, the zookeeper must already be inside there, so we'll see you in there. So Giles goes on in, and to meet the zookeeper and get everything set up, and Willow waits outside. And then we cut to Buffy's running through the woods still. The hyenas are hot on her trail. And then we cut to a scene of Giles entering the hyena exhibit. And he's got it's such a great line here where he's like, hello, doctor? And he's like, zookeeper? And I don't know, that it just cracked me up.
Because we never learn this guy's name.
Yeah, exactly.
In the entire episode.
Exactly.
Nor should I point out, do we ever learn anybody else's name outside of Kyle in the asshole brigade?
Yeah, that's true. And then I lost my shit, because Giles turns around and here's the zookeeper, but he's painted up, and he's got his whole face and head are painted up, and he's got this robe on and this staff, and I don't know. I guess it's something about being balding, and he's got the glasses on and he's all painted. I don't know. It just cracked me up. I was like, this is so ridiculous. Like, how did Giles not turn and see him and be like, lol, like, what the fuck, bro? What are you doing? Like, is this a cosplay that I wasn't told about? I don't know. It was just hilarious to me.
Well, Giles does, like, when Giles first sees him, he looks like he's like kind of like, dude, what the fuck are you wearing?
Yeah, like, what the hell?
But then he's like,
oh, the Maasai ceremonial garb,
Right. Like, he quickly.
I guess what I'm saying is, like, in real life, looking at it, it was just not good costuming, and it was just not. It was just hilarious. It was so dumb. It looked like a bad. Like, did your teacher, when you were growing up, did your teacher ever dress up for Halloween? And it was like, it was like a bad.
Until they outlawed Halloween in public schools.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it's Jesus now. We gotta watch out for that now. Yeah, it was just like that. It was a bad homemade costume, and it just cracked me up. And anyway, so Giles is like, are you ready for the ritual? And the zookeeper's like, almost. And then Giles is walking around and he realizes that that big circle, which we saw in the opening scene, this big symbol that's on the floor of this place. And he's like, wait, why is this here? And I'll just play the clip and let you guys hear what's said here.
Doctor? Zookeeper? Oh, of course. The Maasai ceremonial garb. Yes. Very good. Are you otherwise prepared for the transpossession?
Almost.
Oh, right. The sacred circle. Yes, you'd need that to. But this would be here when the children first came. Why would you? How terribly frustrating for you that a bunch of school children could accomplish what you could not.
It bothered me. But the power will be mine.
The power will be mine, is what he says. So yeah, Giles realizes this has all been a setup. That this guy, he had the hyenas in quarantine to begin with because he was going to do the ritual to get the spirits in him, and blah blah blah. Anyways, Giles puts it all together, and he goes to run, and right when he does, the guy cracks him with the big staff and KOs him, and the last thing we see is him dragging Giles away.
Once again, Giles is knocked out.
Yes, Giles is he just gets wrecked constantly, but he's good at it.
Yeah. So then we see Buffy running through the woods still again, being chased by the pack, and they're clearly getting close to the zoo because Willow hears them and runs in to the hyena exhibit, calling for Giles. Sees he isn't there. She sees the zookeeper and asks where the hyenas are for the transpossession, and he says they're locked up. They haven't been fed. Stay away from them. Blah blah blah. So she asks where Giles is, and the zookeeper says he's laying in wait, and then he proceeds to tie Willow's hands up.
And Willow just stands there like, okay, yeah, let's do this. Like, this is the thing we need to do now.
Right. Well, and he's not quite convincingly explaining it away as, oh, this is what we need to do for the predatory act, remember? And she's like, oh, right. Meanwhile, we cut to Buffy being chased by the pack, and she's like, they're coming, get ready. And the zookeeper holds a knife up to Willow's throat, and Willow's like, you'll pretend to slash my throat and put the evil in the hyenas, and the zookeeper's like, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, just like that, except I'm actually gonna slice your throat.
Right. At which point Buffy arrives, and Willow pulls an Admiral Akbar and yells, "It's a trap!"
Yeah,
it's a trap! It's a trap! And Buffy stops dead in her tracks and gets tackled by Xander, and then the rest of the pack fall in after them, and they all end up on the sacred tribal circle, and the zookeeper yells something in Maasai. And,
yeah.
Wow.
See, it was spot on, wasn't it?
And when he does, his eyes flash that same greenish yellow we saw from the beginning of the episode, and then Xander's eyes flash that color, as well as the 4 members of the Asshole Brigade. And all of a sudden, the zookeeper gets even more aggressive than he previously was, because holding a knife to someone's throat is pretty goddamn aggressive.
Yeah.
And we realize that the hyena spirits are now in him, and he
Yeah, like
growls.
all of them are in just him.
Right. And he growls and drops the knife, and
Yeah, he's like, why just go ahead and simply finish this by cutting your throat? I'll just drop the knife and eat your head.
right, he gets ready to take a bite out of Willow, and Xander comes to his senses and attacks the zookeeper, spears him away from Willow, and knocks him down. And the zookeeper,
Then he gets what the fuck backhanded.
yeah, he gets
to another dimension.
Yeah. And then Buffy and
I love a good backhand, by the way. Anytime any of these episodes someone throws a wicked backhand, I'm gonna talk about it because it's hilarious. It's like you don't even deserve like a full-on punch. I'm just gonna backhand the shit out of you.
Right. It's like it's the most disrespectful.
Yes, exactly. It's like you're dismissed. Bow.
Right. Just like boom.
Yeah.
Probably because it's like the idea that you're just swatting something away nonchalantly.
Yeah, fly. He's like, get out of here, little fly.
So then of course Buffy and the zookeeper engage in fisticuffs. But it doesn't last long at all.
No, not at all.
Buffy ends up accidentally, I think, tossing him into the hyena enclosure, where he is quickly devoured by the hyenas.
And again, we never see any of these hyenas.
No, outside of our...
We only ever saw the one puppet that was horrible.
Right. But yeah, he's promptly devoured by the hyenas.
Oh, and I did want to say there was one point in the fight there with her and the zookeeper where she just straight up body slammed him. Like straight up WWF body slammed him. It was awesome.
Oh yeah. There's also definitely certain parts of that zookeeper Buffy fight scene where if you're paying attention, it's not Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Oh yeah, they've never been very good at hiding that with the stunt doubles in this show.
Yeah, and it's particularly noticeable, like in this case where the fight is almost entirely shot up close.
Yeah.
Which like there's not a whole lot of wide shots of the fight. So
yeah, that set was very small.
Yeah,
all things considered.
So when you get in close like that, it's definitely much easier to be like, well, that's not 19-year-old Sarah Michelle Gellar body slamming that man.
That's 31-year-old so-and-so.
Right.
But yeah, but the body slam was just awesome.
Gibby Parks, who's been a stunt coordinator for the last 25 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the end of that scene.
Yeah, and then to close her up, we're at school the next day, and Buffy and Willow are walking, and Willow says, "I hear the vice principal's taking over until they find a replacement." And they're like, "Yeah, it shouldn't be a problem to find a new principal." And go ahead.
And she says, "Unless they tell him what happened to the old one."
Yeah, exactly. And then Xander shows up, and he's, totally back to normal. And he's like, she's like, Willow's like, "You saved my life." And he's like, "Well, of course, you're my Willow." And he, hugs her up. And of course, she's in seventh heaven. She's very happy to have her old Xander back. And he's like, I didn't do anything else embarrassing, did I? Right? And Buffy looks at Willow, and Willow looks at her, and Buffy's just like, "Nah." And anyway, Buffy's like, "Well, come on, Will, we gotta go to lunch." And so they take off, and Xander turns around and runs into Giles, and Giles is like, in all my research about this whole thing, I didn't come across anything about memory loss. And so he knows Xander remembers everything. Mm-hmm. And Xander's like, "You didn't tell them that, did you?" And Giles is like, "Your secret dies with me." And Xander says, "Shoot me, stuff me, mount me," and walks away. And Giles just kind of smiles and chuckles to himself. And that's the end of the episode. And it pissed me off because we got zero resolution with the other 4 pack members. Nothing. Zilch. We will never see them again in the history of this show.
Right. That's
Ever.
true. What we should point out that in this scene, they do make it clear to Xander that he did not have any part of eating Principal Flutie.
Right. But he
did partake in Herbert the pig.
Yes, he did. He's like, now when you say I ate a pig, was that cooked and was it called bacon?
Right.
So yeah, it's
I'd like to point out here, the Giles's line, like he leans in close to Xander and he says, "Your secret's safe with me," and I have to wonder, like, what secret exactly? Because and this isn't the first episode, like it's continually been an issue since the first episode, but they frequently have these conversations about what's going on in the wide open with an abundance of other people around to hear what's going on.
Oh yeah. You're supposed to assume that they're all deaf and they can't hear anything. It's it's one of those TV show tropes that you're just supposed to say, well, the people who are walking around in the background, they can't hear the conversation, could they? No. Yeah.
I would like it especially killed me like when Giles went the extra effort of leaning in to be like, "Your secret's safe with me." Literally everyone else at the top of those stairs and on that balcony heard this conversation.
Yeah. Every single word of it.
Yeah.
But it just drives me insane that there was I hate dangling threads.
Yeah. I mean,
if you're gonna bring them back at some point and then finish it up or whatever, okay, but that does not happen. We never see these people ever again.
Right.
And they're never spoken about ever again. Like it's so aggravating.
Well, I think, and I can't, and it's been so long since I've watched the entirety of the show, so I can only speak onto, what we've revisited so far for this season, but it seems to be a common thread so far that we're either introduced to people that we've never heard of before that are supposed to be a big deal, or we and then where we never hear from them again, even though they were supposed to have been a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, it happens a lot in this show and a lot of other shows, but
Right.
I don't know. Every time it happens, I'm going to bring it up because it drives me fucking crazy. I'm like, why don't you cut out? How about you cut out some of that totally unnecessary goop in the middle of the episode? That way we can have a scene of, some kind of resolution with 4 people who were like the main antagonists of the fucking show,
Right.
But, far be it from me to talk sense.
Well, like you said, like, it's something that happens in a lot of shows. It's
Yeah, it really does. It's not just the show. I'm just picking on it because this is the show we're rewatching.
And it's I imagine it's difficult even in long form storytelling to, you're trying to fit a lot into what ultimately ends up being like a 48-minute episode.
Right.
So, and at the end of the day, anything outside of our main protagonists are irrelevant.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Yeah.
But
all right, James. Well, let's give our overall thoughts and rate this bitch.
I'm gonna give this episode a 3.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. It wasn't overly action heavy, but it also wasn't there weren't a lot of times where it dragged, with the exception of, in my opinion, that one scene.
Slow-mo sauntering.
Right, slow-mo sauntering and that one completely unnecessary scene with the lady and her baby.
Yeah.
But there was enough going on to keep me actively engaged throughout the episode. And also I have a soft spot for episodes where actors get to play their characters against type.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, totally. And he did a great job.
Right. So this episode in particular, seeing Xander, played so against type as aggressive and mean and demeaning. I enjoyed that because, like I said, I love episodes where whatever the reasoning is, we get to see an actor play that character against what we know.
Yep.
So
I agree 100%.
I think, kind of falling back into our Highlander nerdum, two of my favorite episodes of that show are the Dark Quickening episodes where Duncan's evil.
Yeah, and he did a hell of a job.
Right. And, it's just seeing an actor play their character against type in the way we've seen them portray that character, especially if they do it well, which Nicholas Brendan knocked it out of the park in this episode. So
he did. He very much did.
But in general, I'm also a fan of possession episodes.
Yep.
Anytime a character is possessed by something, that I enjoy that. I don't know why. It might tie directly into the idea that usually gives that character an excuse or reason to act how they normally wouldn't act, but yeah. So yeah, I enjoyed this episode a lot. Definitely a 3 out of 5 for me.
Cool deal.
How about you?
I'm also going to give it a 3. I wanted to rate it higher, but there were just the lack of closure with the pack annoyed me. The useless mother and baby scene annoyed me. Just all the little annoyances added up, and I had to knock some points off, and it just, but it's a solid 3 out of 5. I enjoyed it. Just like you said, I think this was a good balance of an episode with a good balance of action and dialogue.
Right.
Not too heavy on either. It was a good balance that way. I also like possession stuff, and there's a lot of those types of episodes in this show and in Angel, and I really like them. Anytime there's something that's inside of a person that's making them act against type, like you said, against the established, way of the character, yeah, it's very much enjoyable.
And I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, in your opinion, like, what, in your opinion, like, getting philosophical about it for a minute here, in an instance like this, were we seeing perhaps more of the real Xander than the Xander we normally see? I think that's part of the reason I like episodes like this, is because on a philosophical level, I like to question if the person that this person becomes or is acting like, is that more of their personality than what we're actually seeing? Or
I tend to not think so. I tend to think that it would be like, say say I injected you with some type of drug, and let's just say PCP, and you went crazy running down the road, tearing your clothes off and doing cartwheels in your underwear or something, I, I don't think anybody would say, oh, that's the real James right there. You know what I'm saying? Like an undue influence, I would say, does not necessarily reveal the true character or the true nature of a person. I would say that's just my opinion.
Okay. Well, joke's on you, because I would do cartwheels in my underwear down the street without being under the influence of PCP. So,
then, well, maybe we can make that a bonus episode. You heard it here first, folks.
Well, so to me, it's kind of like, it's the idea that, we'll use alcohol as an example. There's the idea that when you're inebriated, you are more likely to say and do things that you want to say and do than you would without the influence of alcohol.
Yeah,
and therefore
I've never bought into that. That way of thinking at all. Like, I just feel like if you're under the influence of anything, whether it's a drug, a chemical, a demon, whatever, there's a reason it's called under the influence of. You know what I'm saying? So I don't buy into that. I think chemicals, demons, whatever, those alter your brain chemistry, and they very much alter your personality, and I don't think that's who the real person is there. No. I think when a person's in total control of their faculties and their what's going on, and the person they present there, that's the real person. I mean, that's just my opinion,
Right. Well, like I said, it's a interesting philosophical discussion. To have.
And to finish up my rating and all that, I just wanted to really quick. I wanted to say, because I teased this earlier, that I think there was a better way they could have done this episode, and I think that during the scene when they all got possessed initially at the beginning of the episode, that when Xander had come in and pushed Lance and Cal apart, like Kyle should have been kind of pushed out of the circle, the ritual circle, and Lance should have been one of the ones that got possessed. And then Lance goes from being, nerdy picked on guy to, uber alpha hyena, and then he just kind of disposes of Kyle, and they go that route. I don't know. I just think that would have made a more interesting, like, ooh, okay,
Right.
But
at the same time, though, don't you think that that's kind of the roles that Xander was filling? Like, the uber nerdy picked on guy?
I think I don't look at Xander, the character of Xander, as uber nerdy picked on guy. I look at him more as like kind of a stoner dude. But I mean, I'm not being a stoner dude, but you know what I'm saying? Like part of that crowd.
Right.
And I think the Lance character would have been, like, they did so much to introduce it and show how goofy and picked on and nerdy he was. Like, they should have, and then in the dodgeball scene, he would have been all aggressive, and I don't know. I just think it would have made a more interesting episode.
Right. Maybe. I don't know. I think you might have, like I said, I think then you might have run into too much of the, like, I think it would have been too, yeah. Well, not just too much emphasis on him, but also I feel like it would have been, like I said, too similar to the Xander portion of it.
Yeah, and yeah,
in my opinion,
we were trying to focus on Xander for this episode, so yeah, that makes sense. I don't know. I just think something there was something there. I don't know.
Or ultimately, maybe they should have just had Lance be part of the pack, regardless.
Yeah, maybe be like the kind of the goofy, nerdy one that they pick on, but he's part of their crew,
Right.
So,
and like you said, it would have, during the dodgeball scene, it would have made more sense for them to turn on him like they did.
Yeah, because he's the weak one and
Right.
yada yada.
But so that's a overall 6 from both of us. That might be, well, maybe not. I was gonna say that might be the
I think
highest.
we rated them higher with combined.
Yeah.
Because I gave one episode a 4.5, I think.
Yeah, I think we both went pretty high with the premiere.
Yeah.
And
One either the first or second part of the premiere. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Well, James, any goofs, gaffes?
Well,
deleted
little monsterology for you this week.
Monstrology.
So the Messiah of the Serengeti, they do exist. It is an actual tribe. They're located mostly in Tanzania and Kenya, so East Africa. They're nomadic, and their culture does center a great deal around animals. The primals sect that was discussed in this episode, however, do not exist. Completely made up for the episode.
Right.
So, little monsterology for us this week. Our body count this week includes Herbert the pig, R.I.P. Herbert.
Oh shit, son of a bitch.
The zookeeper, and of course, Principal Robert. Everyone's allowed to call me Bob, but they don't. Flutie.
Rip, Flutie, rip.
R.I.P. Principal Flutie.
Rest in pieces.
Let's see. Moving on to behind the scenes. We've got despite being credited as a series regular, Miss Charisma Carpenter is absent from this episode.
Yes, she is not seen or heard from whatsoever.
Yep, and of our first 6 episodes, she is the first regular cast member to be absent.
I was not sad.
Wow. Man.
I'm going to be honest.
Harsh.
I was never a fan of the Cordelia character on Buffy. I became a fan of Cordelia once she went to Angel.
Yeah, I remember early on not being a fan of Cordelia Buffy, but at some point she grew on me because I was a fan before she went over to Angel. I always found
her character. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say I was glad that she ended up being one of the main characters on that show when it spun off. But
yeah, I just always found her when she was on Buffy. I always found that character just very empty, very shallow.
Oh yeah.
Just very underwritten, now, Charisma Carpenter did an amazing job. She's a great actress. And so it wasn't her. It was just, she was never given much meat. And, but yeah, once she went to Angel, yeah, I became a huge fan of.
Oh yeah. She's definitely, in my opinion, and I think a lot of fans' opinions, she's definitely got one of the greatest character arcs from beginning of Buffy to her time. You look at time ended on Angel.
Pilot episode of Buffy to the end of Angel. Yeah, definitely. 100%.
And obviously a character who hasn't been introduced yet, but Wesley as well.
Yes, Wesley Crusher, everybody.
Yes, Wesley Crusher. Mr. Will Wheaton himself.
Will Wheaton.
Jeffrey Stephen Smith, who plays the guy who asks Xander about the lead guitarist of the band Wretched Refuse in the school lunch courtyard scene. is also the same actor who was in the second episode, The Harvest. He was the guy in the computer class who's eagerly listening to Cordelia badmouth Buffy.
Okay.
It may or may not be the same character. There's no solid answer to one way or the other. But in my head canon, we're going to make it the same character.
Okay. That's let's call him Ted.
Call him Ted. All right. All sequences shot at the zoo were filmed at the Santa Ana Zoo.
Okay. Wait, Santa Ana, is that very close to where they actually? That's kind of a ways from because they shot in outside of Santa Monica, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
I don't know. I don't know my California geography that well.
Yeah, I didn't I didn't map quest it.
I feel like that's a little piece, but maybe they don't have a zoo in Santa Monica.
Right.
Maybe that one was the closest zoo. Anyway, sorry.
Right.
Go ahead.
I did, since we're talking about towns with zoos, did you, I mean, maybe it's just me, did you find it odd that Sunnydale has its own zoo?
Well, yes. I mean, considering, but I've always heard that like Sunnydale is supposed to be a town inside of Greater LA. But
gotcha.
I don't know. I don't know if I think that's just a fan theory. But yeah, it seems strange that a town that, because we come to find out with the final episode of Buffy that Sunnydale's not that damn big.
Right.
So yeah, to have its own zoo, yeah, it's a little
and a substantial zoo too, like elephants
and hyenas.
Right. Like
yeah. It's not like they just had some birds and a couple of ducks and an alligator.
Right. Yeah, it seemed I don't know. It seemed odd to me.
Yeah.
So that does it for behind the scenes. So moving on to some goofs and gaffes. The establishing shot of Sunnydale High that we see in this episode is ripped right from the episode Teacher's Pet. And Willow is actually visible on one of the benches wearing the same clothing from that episode.
I am going to write them a letter.
The majority of the hyena footage from the episode is actually of African wild dogs and not hyenas.
Yeah, I kind of when you talking about the video she was watching where they were tearing into the carcass.
Yeah, any of the
when I first saw that, I thought those don't look like hyenas, but I was like, well, I'm not a hyena expert, so I guess they're hyenas.
yeah. So yeah, any of the footage
hyenas are fairly large.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't think those are hyenas, but
right, and they sound like Whoopi Goldberg and Cheech Marin.
Right. Exactly.
This is actually something we pointed out at one point, how Xander somehow becomes the unofficial leader of the pack, although hyena packs are matriarchal.
Oh.
So really
one of those girls should have been the leader.
One of those girls should have been.
Well, they didn't want to have to, pay full scale.
Right.
Because they only gave each one of them like half a line.
Financially and storytelling wise, it's better. It's better.
Plus, they already had him named Kyle, and I mean that's already a win for asshole of the year.
Right. When actually, speaking of our pack, our asshole brigade, as you called them, we knew Kyle. The other gentleman in the pack, the blonde hair guy,
we're gonna pretend his name is Chad.
No, his name was Tor, Tor.
No, fuck that. He's Chad.
And he was played by Brian Gross. One of our female Packers was named Rhonda, and she was played by Michael. Her name's Michael McCrane.
Yes, She was the one who was later on married to Stephen Geoghegan, right?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. In real life.
And the other female member of our pack was Heidi, and she was played by Jennifer Skye.
What kind of stupid name is Tor?
Have
you ever heard that in your life? Ever?
No, but I don't write the scripts. I didn't write the scripts.
So his name is Chad. Okay, gotcha.
Kyle
and Chad.
Our the zookeeper in the script is credited as Dr.
Wreak, yeah. And here's another funny thing. Do you remember until Giles walked in looking for him and said, doctor, zookeeper? Had you ever had that anyone ever referred to him as a doctor prior to that?
Nope, it was just zookeeper.
Exactly. Okay, yeah. So he just became a doctor at some point.
Right. Someone looked at the script and was like, "Oh, he's a doctor. We better address him that way." He's
clearly a doctor, so let's.
I mean, it's not funny. Like I obviously for script purposes, but it is slightly amusing to me that these characters have names in the script, but they're never given name. They're never named in the episode.
Yeah, and I've read a ton of scripts over the years for different things, and that's always the case because they got to give it a name. They got to, something for people to the actors to refer to.
Right.
But that happens a lot where they, they're named in the script and then you never hear it on screen.
Right. They weren't going to tell Jennifer Skye like you're playing,
you're
short hair
number one, and this
you're short-haired brunette bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
And these are
you're playing Heidi.
Right.
Oh, can I be Tor?
Do you think maybe that was like an actor choice? Like they didn't have a name.
I want to hope that it is. I want to hope that it was.
Like
and
they were having
Tor.
Right, like they were having trouble naming him in the script, and Brian Gross was like, bros, can I be Tor?
Guys, listen, man, I've got it. Okay, I'm Tor.
This would be totally stoked if like I could be Tor.
Yeah, man.
I've
always felt like a Tor.
And they're like, yeah, Brian, whatever. Your character's name is Tor. Fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to hope that that's exactly what happened.
Music for this episode. In the scene at the Bronze, when Xander first begins to show signs of his possession with Willow and Buffy, the band that is playing is Dashboard Prophets. They're a song called All I Want from their LP Burning Out the Inside, released by No Name Recordings in 1996.
Yes. I knew all this, but I wanted to let you go ahead and
I know you do. I know. The song that's playing in the same scene, but when the Asshole Brigade enter the Bronze, is Sprung Monkey, a returning band.
Now, Sprung Monkey, they're a very old friend of mine.
The song is Reluctant Man from their LP Swirl, released by Surf Dog Records in 1996.
Surf Dog Records, yes.
And the song that is playing while Xander and the pack slow-mo saunter through the quad at Sunnydale.
Fucking minutes.
For 20 minutes of our 48-minute episode.
Yeah.
Is the band Far, their song Job's Eyes, from their LP Tin Cans with Strings to You, released by Epic Records in 1996.
I've actually heard of that band before. I couldn't tell you one single thing about them or their music, but I have heard that name of that band before.
I hadn't heard the name of the band.
You said it just now. I was like, I've heard of that.
I'm familiar with Epic Records.
That's the first band that you've named, other than obviously Nerf Herder, in any of these episodes that I've actually ever heard
of. And that does it. That's all I have.
Let's wrap up with do you have any final thoughts you would like to throw out there?
No, just again, I feel like it was a strong episode. Is the season for the first season of a show. I think 6 episodes in, and it's still managing to deliver on.
Yeah, I feel like they're really starting to hit their stride now. Like they're right now. Like this was the first episode where I felt like they're really starting to figure out who and what they are.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well,
And
I think, and we've talked about this before. I think they had a pretty good idea from the get-go.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think with this episode, they're figuring out how to, like, they know the story that they want to tell. They know what they are and what they want to be. They're figuring out. They're now starting to figure out okay, here's how we'll communicate this.
Right. I think to that respect, I think this is the first what's the best way? Overall story arc episode that they managed to really nail.
Yeah, that wasn't just ridiculous.
Right.
Like the praying mantis episode. Oh God.
Right. Or the witch. I think we both agreed that we really did not care for the witch.
Yeah, they've figured out this is the type of mythology that's interesting. Giant praying mantises or cauldron stirring goofball witches that want to be cheerleaders is not does not a good episode make.
Right. So.
All right. Well, as always, we want to thank you for joining us this week. Please check us out on at BuffyRevisited.com or go to Facebook.com/Slade Podcast. And there you'll see a link tree we have posted there that's got links to all of our socials.
YouTube, TikTok.
You name it, we're there.
Yep.
And we're also at BuffyRevisited@gmail.com. Send your thoughts, your concerns, your prayer requests, whatever. And we will.
If you just want to hear us say your name in the podcast, we'll do that.
Say my name, say my name. But anyway, thank you for joining us again, and we will see you next week. I've been one of your hosts. I'm Jeremy.
I'm your other host, James.
Ta-ta.